Please welcome back Zhengfan Yang. All right. Well, I think I'll ask a few things, and we'll see what the audience wants to know. Well, so you don't always work in fiction, but you are here, and so well, firstly, I was just curious what the writing process looks like for a film like this. You know, I imagine a lot of what we see in the film didn't fall into place until you had the locations and the performers and so on. So maybe you could tell us a bit about that. But also, I was struck in looking at the film again today how in your partner Shengze's last film, which is like a kind of homecoming film, but it's about the impossibility of homecomings and so on. And this film is picking up certain themes that are in a lot of the work that you do together. It pushes some things even further, maybe. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how that theme sort of was developed for the script.
First of all, thank you for staying. I just came back from my hotel room and it feels more like a stranger there in the cinema. Yeah, so the idea came out in 2016, 1 year after I moved from China to the US. And then my wife and I, we have been living in the state in Chicago, between the US and China during the past 10 years. And I think this kind of experience, like living like an outsider in both countries, not in the US but also in China, gradually shaped this film. And then one day when I was staying in a hotel room, it suddenly when I was stuck there, I felt like my psychological state. I feel hotel room provides as a space provide a metaphor for my psychological state as an outsider in both countries. And so I started developing a film that takes place completely in hotel rooms, maybe in different hotel rooms. But back then I still haven't an idea how I'm gonna develop the narrative or the structure, because like the second question, so my partner and I, we have been working on films that are more structuralist. And so naturally I came up with an idea that, okay, maybe let's make a film that takes place in different hotel rooms, and one long take for each room, and as a reflection of my own psychological state during the past 10 years. And it took me a few years to write, and then 3 years for financing, and then when we were about to make the film, the pandemic hit, so we have to wait another 3 years until we get it done in the end of 2022.
And it's I think it's a mix of professional and non-professional actors, right? Can you tell us a bit about the casting, and because it's striking on the one hand, the long take can be quite demanding for performers. So it seems to require more of you sort of as a director to help them to navigate that. Could you just tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So in my previous films, I have never worked with professional actors. I use there are some performance, some acting, but they were all in the background, like really little tiny figures. But in this film, because we were stuck in such a tiny space, and they are all real hotel rooms, by the way. And so it's my first time to work with professional actors, and also some of them are non-professional because, like in the last scene, we don't need that. But in the previous scenes, most of them are professional actors and actresses because we will see. I think the most important thing that they offer to me as a director is that is the rhythm, because I think they have a different rhythm. And the first thing, so during the casting, when they send videos to me, the first thing I look at is the pacing of their movement in action, and that's the most thing that I care about, instead of those very cliche acting or performance. So that's the basic and most important principle during casting. And then during the shooting, the first thing when I tell them after I hand them the script, and the first thing I tell them is that just do it in the most comfortable way, with your most comfortable rhythm and pacing and that sort of things, regardless of how long it is. And I said I don't have a time frame for that, so just do as you feel. So the feeling is the most important part. For example, like the pandemic thing. The first rehearsal was like over 40 minutes long, and what I did is not ask her to speed up her performance, but instead I took out part of the stories away from the script and asked her to do it again until we trim it into that's what it looks like right now.
And as for the settings, I'm curious about the selection of them, because as you say, they're all hotel rooms, but it's also, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with like the concept of like the non-place, and the hotel room is like an exemplary kind of non-place. So it occurred to me it puts you in a funny position of having to find specific settings that they're almost like specific in their unspecificness. Yeah.
You mean terms of the
Just, yeah.
When it comes to the specific locations, I mean, I already have the general idea, the concept of hotel room as a space or one place. And then when it comes to the specific locations, selections, so at the very beginning we couldn't do the location scouting by ourselves because it was in the pandemic and we were in Chicago and we couldn't do that by ourselves. So we asked our line producers to find some locations for us, and I also did research online. So the most important thing for me is to find the rooms that are suitable for camera movement, because so all the camera movements were, most of the camera movements were decided at the very beginning in the script phrases, and from static to more mobile moving cameras. So I need to find rooms that, first of all, we can put all the equipment inside, like tracks and also the sound and those kind of things. And then based on the locations we find, I did a second kind of mise-en-scène based on the rooms. Yeah.
All right. Why don't we take some audience questions? So please raise your hand. We'll bring the microphone. We'll start with the mask.
Hi, thank you. You previously worked on another unit as well. It was also a long take, just like a fly on the wall sort of thing. I'm wondering, in an ideal world, would you be making this as a documentary as well, if that were possible? Like if you were able to enter different hotel rooms and observe people's lives. I mean, in other words, what do you think the narrative approach offers and takes away compared to a documentary approach?
You mean like making stranger in a documentary style?
Not style, but like entirely as a documentary, which is not possible, but in an ideal world, if that was possible.
I think compared to like, for the background, Another Year is a film that I work as a producer and directed by my partner almost 10 years ago. So it's a documentary film, and we have been making more documentaries than fiction. So strictly speaking, this is my first fiction film, completely fiction film. So I think it's not possible for me to make it in the documentary form with this idea and concept, because for me it's a very personal one. And when it comes to such a personal, I always think fiction film in a technical aspect is more personal and psychological than a documentary film, because a documentary could always, it's more about others, and while a fiction film or like this one is more like for me, it's more like a mirror stage, like the first time when you come, that I have to expose and face to myself and reflect on my own experience. So if I have to make it into a documentary film, then it will be me sitting in a hotel room conceiving a fiction film called Stranger.
I want to ask about the music choice, specifically the use of Shostakovich's Jazz Suite, and obviously in that wedding scene and credits, but also I think if I'm correct, I think in the first sequence, in the first part of the film, the girl was when she was cleaning the shower room, she's also humming that tune, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm wondering, like, what's the choice of this specific melody or piece of music in Wesley? Because I don't think you used any other music in the movie.
Yeah, that's the only music I used. And first of all, I like this music, and I like Shostakovich, and it's also on a social perspective, it's a very popular classical music that was used in China in the past, and sometimes I hear it. I even hear it in weddings because they think that's a good music for dancing. So naturally, and also I like it. So that's a kind of a personal and aesthetic choice for me. And I decided during the script phrases to use it like 3 times, the girl humming, and then the wedding, the actual wedding, which is kind of realistic, and at the end of the film, and try to put the music in a structure like each part echoes each other, and yeah, and that's actually one of the most expensive part, yeah, the film.
He plays at the beginning of Eyes Wide Shut. That Shostakovich piece plays at the beginning of Eyes Wide Shut, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
This is the only time I've seen a hotel room where the bathroom had a glass partition. Is that common in China? Glass partition around the bathroom. I've never seen that anywhere before. Is that something that's common in China?
You mean the second scene or the
Very first.
Oh, the very first. Like which part of it? Oh, you mean the transparent glass?
Yeah.
It's not difficult to find. It's kind of, yeah. And I in the script, it wasn't there in the script until they gave me some options, and so this one said, okay, that creates some possibility for the space. So yeah.
I wondered if there was any controversy about showing this in China. I was thinking of the police interrogation scene and whether that would be controversial.
It's not my place to say because that's the authorities. Yeah, but I never thought of like this kind of scene would like cause the censorship or anything. And that scene was actually adapted from a real event experienced by a friend who also made a short documentary film about this kind of questioning. And I think filmmaker is sitting somewhere here. And yeah, I think that definitely brings some questions in regard of the film's possibility of showing in China. But for my own personal perspective, I've never thought of like passing the censorship with, and also the pandemic part. Yeah, but in return, I get the freedom. Yeah.
You could still, like, theoretically be shown in sort of more unofficial context, right?
Yeah, but there are like less and less space for that. You know.
All right, let's go all the way to the back.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I just want to say I really love the movie, and the dialogue is super relatable. and the theme is relevant, and then the whole delivery is super well paced, and I really love it.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you guys know you.
Hey, good afternoon. I had a question about you as a writer. I was just curious, the 7 scenes, if you went into those, if those were like preconceived, or if you had written more or even shot more other scenarios and then like selected those for the final film.
Yeah, actually, I had one more scene that I didn't add into the film. For me, it was supposed to be the second scene in the film. It's actually about a couple bringing their seriously ill father to a big city looking for medical treatment, and then eventually I decided to cut that scene out because on one hand it's too long, the entire film, and it's also a static shot, and then I also feel it's too realistic for me. And so because the narrative in my mind was to gradually develop from more realistic scenes to something more surreal and absurd, and also more personal. And I felt after I wrote that scene and actually shoot that scene, I felt it's more, I couldn't very related to that personally, and so I decided to take it away. So originally there were 8 scenes in total.
Thank you for the film. I just have a question. The absence of subtitles during the wedding sequence, is that intentional?
You mean without subtitles?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just technically I couldn't subtitle it. It's just people just talking and everything was overlapping. But I did write all the dialogues for each actor. So for each actor in the background. So they did what I wrote, but just but I decided at the very beginning, and I knew that it's impossible to subtitle that scene because I asked them to overlap, asked them to speak out all the dialogues and overlap. So, but it's important for me to provide something for them to create the sound for me. Yeah.
I just want to say I really appreciated that the character, the street performer, was dressing up as Sun Wukong, right? Monkey King.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recognize it from childhood cartoons. And I just noticed the theme of loneliness or boredom, disconnectedness. It's set during COVID, right? The COVID quarantine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you chose these specific characters and stories compiled among one another? I noticed there was a lot of disconnectedness and kind of a feeling of pretending with the live streamer and the costume performer. I just want to hear more about why you chose these characters.
Because hotel room it provides such intimate space, and it's the only space that allows people to release their heightened emotions. But it's not the case when you're doing live streamings. So I always wanted at the very beginning the concept is to put one actor or actress into one room, but that's not enough to tell the story about it's not enough to construct a narrative to tell a story about loneliness and isolation. But in that sense, it's the longest scene in the entire film, but it's only one actress inside. And so the only way to generate, because it provides something that we don't often see in hotel rooms. It's not like a direct interaction between two people, like the second scene, or like a lot of a crowd in the wedding. It's through the screen. one act and stakes differently, and I think that will provide a very special layer for the film, and also the surreal sense bringing up in that scene, like the pandemic is over, was over a long time ago, and she still like have no idea what's going on. It's like the film underground. The world is strange, but you have no idea. You're still stuck in your tiny space. Yeah, and also in terms of the scene following that one, the second last scene, that's actually the most personal scene because I wrote and I read the monologue myself, and in a different language. It's in Cantonese. It's not in Mandarin because Cantonese is for me, it's the most intimate language, and I'm Cantonese myself. It's a direct reflection. It's unlike the Parisians, they are all like indirectly related to my own experience. That one was like direct reflection of my own experience living between China and the US, and that's how I feel like that scene was shot in the US in a motel along the highway in Chicago. So it's more about the Chinese immigrants like small monologue, and so it's all if you and I decided to put on the mask for the actors that I always felt that for many maybe not for many Chinese immigrants, but for myself, I always need to put on the mask to play the role of a Chinese. Otherwise, people here will think that I'm not Chinese enough. And I think that's a very it's a very cliche and stereotype image. And I think that that's a struggle for the immigrant and for the actor in the film and for me as well.
So we can take one or two more. Go right in the middle.
Yeah, thank you for the film. Yeah, I'm curious about the sequencing or the order of the scenes. Could you explain the rationale or their thoughts behind why they are sequencing this way from 1 to 7? Was it created at the very beginning or after you filmed all of the scenes?
Yeah, for me, there's a hidden narrative. As early as I started writing the script, so I decided at the very beginning that the narrative of the film, the narrative develops from something more realistic and simple to something more surreal, absurd, and complicated. And meanwhile, the camera moves in a way like that. It's static at the very beginning, the second scene, and then gradually move, but on the track, and then on the mobile cart, and then handheld. So the camera movement, or the mise-en-scène, is getting more and more complicated along with the issues, because the issues are getting more and more complicated. In the first 1 or 2 or 3 scenes, the issue in the scene are quite obvious, and it's easy to be concluded. But in the later parts, it becomes more and more complicated, and it's more like a personal struggle. And so I hope it's getting from like a social perspective to the personal one, and also static to movements, and also and also the first and the last thing were always shortest. Like the first thing is to establish the space as a hotel room. So it's more like introducing the space of the film and also the concept of the film, and the last thing is that life presented to us in different ways. Yeah.
I want to take the last question selfishly. One thing we haven't really addressed so far is like the the editing of the film, which I'm always like when an artist is working so prevalently like with the long take, I'm always interested to hear how they cut it all together, because you would think that when you have these like one might assume that when you have like these big blocks of time to work with, then it just kind of you put them all together and it's a film, but it's certainly much more precise than that. So could you tell us a little bit about how you decide where and when to cut?
Each scene, or just the overall.
I think did a pretty good job, like in controlling the rhythm, because it's created by actor, and we have an agreement on that. And then I actually only did just cut a bit of the beginning and the ending. I didn't do a lot, but they are like kind of montage in the film. Although even though it's made of long takes, for example, like the 1, 2, 3, not the 1, 2, 3, but yeah, it was in the original script. I cut it away, just trying to keep it shortened because when I show the film to a handful of friends, they get feedbacks like they give me feedbacks like something up too extended or too long. So I just did. It's more like a structure, try to keep it tightened. But for me, montage is like editing heartbeat, and long take is like editing breathe. So for me, the most important thing is to make sure that that a shot or a scene is long enough instead of short enough, because only by allowing the audience exposed to the time, to the passage of time in each scene, that the atmosphere and the feeling could be generated. I think that's the most direct contact between a movie image work with sound and the audience, instead of the story, because one can easily read a story about anything and that will be done. That's not what's left behind.
Why don't we leave it there? Zhengfan, thank you for coming back. Thank you for the